So in this lecture we will go through the next advanced facility of macros, that is macro instructions defining macros, which is also called as the concept of nested macros, right? So we have already studied the concept of using nested conditional statements, that is nested if-else statements, where a single if block may contain a multiple number of other if blocks, right? So that is the concept of nested if-else statements. Similarly, we have also gone through the condition of nested iterations, right, where a simple for loop could contain other for loops, right? So these concepts, these type of constructs are called nested constructs, and we are already comfortable with the concept, right, from previous lectures of C, C++, Java. In the previous semesters we already know about these concepts, but in the current lecture we will be using the same concept in the respect of macros, right, with macro instructions. So the basic observation which if we can recapitulate from the previous lectures is that the macro calls can be only made after a macro has been defined. So to work with a macro, to work with the macro facility, the first step and the main step is to be able to define the macro properly, and once we have done that, then we can call that macro, right? So the first step, I repeat, is to define the macro appropriately. Only then we can call it. So if we can again recap, we have already gone through this thing in the previous lectures time and again. However, I am still repeating it. This is a sample macro definition, right, beginning with macro keyword and ending with macro end or ment pseudo up, right? So this is a sample definition, and the name of the macro here is INCR. If you remember, the name of the macro is always written in the second line, and if there are arguments, it is kept after the name, right? So here the name of the macro is INCR, and these statements throughout the program, somewhere else in the program after the definition, these statements are referring to the macro calls, right? So these are the macro call statements for the defined macro called INCR. Fine. So this is a very basic thing that we know, but we have to always keep in mind that I can only call a macro after I have defined it. If I have not defined the macro, there is no purpose of calling it. Fine. Right. So then comes the concept of nested macro. So sometimes it may seem that one macro can call another macro from within its own block, just like we can have a for loop which calls another for loop which has another for loop rather, and we can also have functions which call other functions, right, within themselves. Similarly, we can have if-else statements with other if-else statements inside the block, right? So this thing, as I have already said, this thing is called nesting, and similar concept can be applied to macros here, and in that case the macros are referred to as the nested macros. These are called nested macros. Obviously the nested or the called macros, they need to be defined first, right? So as I have said in the previous slide, the first step is to define the macro properly, and then we can think about calling it. Similar thing follows about nesting, right? And we will go through the problems or the solution in the coming slides. So let's take a simple example of a macro definition. Now this is another example, not the same one as we have used previously. Let's go through the example once more, right, to recapitulate the structure of a whole macro definition. Fine. So the definition begins with the macro keyword, right? It begins with the macro keyword. It's nothing but a pseudo op. It's not a keyword actually, per se. It's a pseudo op for the assembler. Fine. So the definition is beginning with the macro pseudo op. That is the first instruction in the macro definition. The second instruction is the name of the macro, which is add1, right? Add1 is the name of the macro. Again, the second instruction begins with the name of the macro, and if there are any arguments to be used in the macro, those arguments or the argument list is specified after the macro name in the second instruction. So here in this macro that we are trying to understand, in this macro there is a argument, one single argument to be used, ampersand arg, and we are naming that after the name of the macro in the second instruction, right? So add1 is the name of the macro, ampersand arg, it is the argument that will be used by this macro, right? It is the argument that will be used by this macro. So ampersand arg is mentioned in the naming instruction, that is in the second instruction along with add1. Please excuse me, this won't be ins here, this will be add1, right? Okay, right. So when we are done with the first two instructions, macro and add1 ampersand arg, we have to go into the body of the macro, right? The actual definition, what the macro will do, right? So in this case, the macro has three instructions: a load instruction, which we have already understood from previous lectures. This is an add instruction, and then there is a store instruction, right? So we are not going to dive into the specifics of these instructions per se, but let's simply understand one thing, that this macro works with an argument ampersand arg, and that argument is used by the instructions within the macro body, right? Which instructions use the argument? The load instruction uses the argument, and the stored instruction uses the argument. Fine. So this is what the macro definition denotes, right? And obviously the mend or macro end pseudo up is used to define the end of a macro definition, right? So this is what the macro definition, a simple macro definition again, means. Fine. So we are not supposed to have any problems with this. If you are having problems understanding the macro definitions, please go through the previous lectures again. Okay. Moving ahead, a macro call, right? So for this given macro definition, which has the name add1 and which has a argument ampersand arg, what would the macro call look like? The macro call would look like this: the name of the macro definition followed by a argument that is passed, right? So we could simply make a macro call using add1 data1, right? So add1 data1 is a simple macro call where add1 is the name of the macro, data1 is the argument passed to it. Similarly, add1 data2 could be another macro call where add1 is the name of the macro, data2 is the name of an argument. Fine. So this is the sample macro call. This is again very simple and repetitive because we have learned this previously. Fine. Okay. Moving ahead, let's dive into the concept of a macro that uses another macro. Fine. So again, here we have a macro definition. This is nothing but a macro definition which we have just learnt. But in this case, let's again go through the whole definition and find if there is something new or something different in this definition. Fine. So in this case, the definition obviously begins with the macro pseudo up. In the second instruction, we find that it is written adds, adds. Fine. That is the name of the macro. That is perfectly acceptable. Followed by three arguments: ampersand arg1, ampersand arg2, and ampersand arg3. Fine. So this also we have studied in the previous lectures, where a macro can have more than one argument. Fine. So up till now we can understand that there is a macro by the name of adds or adds, which has three arguments, right? arg1, arg2, arg3. That is completely fine. Okay. Now in the following three instructions, we find something new which we have not gone through before, right? The first instruction is add1 ampersand arg1, the second instruction is add1 ampersand arg2, and the third instruction is add1 ampersand arg3, right? So again, these three instructions are new because in any previous macro definition we have not found instructions which call other macros, but in these instructions, add1 ampersand arg1 is nothing but a call to macro defined previously, right? What was the macro? The macro was this macro, right? So what is this add1 ampersand arg1 statement doing? It is simply issuing a call to the previously defined macro called add1, right? Similarly, in the second instruction, add1 ampersand arg2, we are passing as argument some value by calling the macro add1, and the same thing is being repeated in the third instruction also, where we have add1 ampersand arg3, right? So to summarize the whole thing, what we have new here is we have a macro definition where the same syntax and everything is followed, but what is new is that we have the macro body or the instructions in the macro body which are calling another macro. So each of these statements, instruction 1, instruction 2 and instruction 3 inside the macro definition, or the main macro body, all of these instructions are nothing but macro call statements, which are calling or which are issuing a call to the macro which is named as add1, right? So we have already gone through the definition of the add1 macro, right? This is the definition of the add1 macro, and this addS macro is doing nothing but issuing calls to the add1 macro. Fine. So it is written interestingly, these instructions call the macro add1 with different arguments, right? So these instructions are simply issuing calls to the macro add1, and the arguments are being varied. Now these arguments are being varied for the macro calls, but all of these arguments are part of the macro definition of the macro named addS, right? So these arguments are part of the macro named addS. So this we have to get very clear. So if you have any problems with this part, please pause the video, go through the whole thing again and try to understand it. Fine. Alright, so moving ahead, what can we note or what do we observe from the previous example? We observe a few things. Here macro ADDS uses macro ADD1. Obviously the main macro definition says ADDS, right? It's the name of the macro, but it is issuing calls to the macro ADD1, so it is using macro ADD1. So obviously, as we have seen previously in the beginning of this lecture, we made a simple observation that a macro has to be defined before it is being called. Similarly, in this case, the macro ADD1 is being called, right? But that means somewhere in the same program this macro has to be defined, right? In the same program this macro has to be defined before it is being called. Fine. So only then we can call and use the macro ADDS. So ADDS cannot be used or ADDS cannot be called until and unless macro ADD1 is defined before ADDS, right? So this is something you have to understand, right? Again, ADDS cannot be called and used until and unless we define the macro ADD1, because ADDS is completely dependent, each instruction in ADDS is completely dependent on the macro ADD1, so that has to be defined before ADDS. Fine. So this is again something that you have to get very clear. Fine. Okay, so the complete source code, if we are now looking from the perspective of a programmer, the whole source code would be like this, where there could be previous instructions in the program, right, before the macro definition, but the concerned part, the part we are concerned with right now, is the macro definition. So from the perspective of macro definitions, the complete source program looks like this, where initially we have the definition for the macro ADD1, right? So initially we can have the definition of macro ADD1. If you see, this is the same as we had discussed previously, right? So the ADD1 is the name, one argument is defined, and the load, add and store instructions are being used in the macro body, where the load and the stored instructions are making use of the argument, right? And the definition is being closed with the end pseudo up. So this is the nothing but the definition of macro ADD1. This we have already studied, we have gone through, right? Similarly, that definition of ADD1, it has to be followed by ADDS, right? Please keep in mind that ADDS cannot precede or come before the definition of ADD1, because the macro ADDS is using ADD1, right? So logically it we can come to the conclusion that ADD1 has to be defined somewhere in the program before we are using it in ADDS, right? Okay, so now in ADDS the same definition is being followed as we have again studied in the previous slides. ADDS has three arguments, arg1, arg2, arg3, and it is issuing calls to ADD1. In the first instruction, it is using arg1 as argument to ADD1. In the second instruction, it is using arg2 as an argument to ADD1, and in the third instruction, it is using arg3 as an argument to ADD1, right? So this is the complete source code, if we can actually think of it as a programming source code, right? Okay, so it can be said that call of such nested macros leads to a multi-level expansion, right? So whenever we are using and whenever we are defining such nested macros, and when we then go on to call it, we actually tend to use a multi-level expansion. Now one sample call would look like this. Now what are we concerned with right now? Are we concerned with ADD1 anymore? No. we are concerned with ADDS. We are right now using ADDS, which in turn is calling the macro called ADD1. Fine. So a sample call to the macro ADDS would look like this: ADDS followed by 3 arguments, data 1, data 2, data 3, or any others, right? Because the ADDS has 3 arguments, so we are supposed to place 3 arguments, and each of these arguments is tallied with the respective positional keyword argument, right, or positional dummy argument. Like data 1 is being tallied with arg1, data 2 is being tallied with arg2, and so on and so forth, right? So this is the whole concept of nested macros and multi-level expansion. Now we will dive into the whole details in this last figure, right? So towards the extreme left hand side, we have a source program, fine, where there is the whole macro definition is being shown, and this we have studied just now previously, right? This thing we have studied a few minutes back. This is the macro definition, where the first part is the definition of the macro ADD1, right, and the next part is the definition of the macro ADDS, and here the same thing is being followed, where the macro ADDS is using 3 arguments and it is issuing calls to the macro ADD1 by using one argument after another, fine. So this is nothing but the source program, and in the source program somewhere we have issued a call to the macro ADDS, right? In the source program somewhere we have issued a call to the macro called ADDS by passing 3 arguments, data 1, data 2, and data 3. So as we have done in the previous lectures also, we will try to understand the expansion, right? We have gone through the source code and the expanded code in the previous lecture. Similarly, in this lecture also we will try to see what the expanded source code are. So in this source program, the only call statement, now this could be repeated multiple times. Right now there is only one call statement, but every call statement to ADDS will have a multi-level expansion. How? The first call, or the call that we are using to ADDS, it results in the expanded source level 1, fine. Now in that expanded level 1, what happens is the ADDS call is being expanded, or the ADDS macro is being expanded. Now when the ADDS macro is being expanded, we have already learned how macro expansion occurs. So what will happen is these 3 arguments, these 3 positional arguments will be used or replaced in place of the dummy arguments, right? So data 1 corresponds to arg1, data 2 corresponds to arg2, and data 3 corresponds to arg3, and in this way all the 3 instructions for ADDS macro will be expanded, right, will be used. So what happens is the 3 statements will become ADD1 data 1, ADD2 data 2, ADD1 data 2, and ADD1 data 3. So this is nothing but the expansion of the macro call to the macro named ADDS. Again, to when we are calling the macro ADDS using 3 arguments, each of the arguments are being used in the respective macro call instructions within the body of ADDS, right? And ultimately that results in an expansion where we have 3 instructions: ADD1 data 1, ADD1 data 2, and ADD1 data 3. So this is all about the expanded source code of level 1. Now when we have the expanded source code of level 1, we can see that each of these instructions is nothing but another macro call, right? Please take a moment to observe and understand that each of these instructions is nothing but another macro call, fine. So what macro call is this? This is the macro call for the macro named ADD1, right? So in the first instruction we are calling ADD1 with argument data 1, in the second instruction we are calling ADD1 with the argument data 2, and in the third one we are calling ADD1 with argument data 3. So what will happen is, since each of these are macro call statements, they will have further expansions, their own expansions, right? So that will bring us to the expanded source level 2. In this case, what happens is we have the expansions of macro ADD1, right? So for the first macro call instruction, which is ADD1 data 1, we will have the 3 load, add, and store instructions, where the load and the store instructions will be using data 1, which is passed as an argument to the macro call for ADD1. Please make sure you understand this. Similarly, ADD1 data 2 will have an expansion where the load, add, and store instructions will be replaced, and in load and store instructions, data 1 will be replacing the dummy argument, right? So this is again the expansion of the second add 1 call, right? Similarly, the third instruction, which calls add1 with data3 argument, will again have the load and unstore instructions, where data3 will replace the positional or dummy arguments, arg3, right? So in the load and store instructions, arg3 will be replaced by the argument which is passed, which is named as data3. Fine. So this is nothing but the expanded source level 2. So as we can see, whenever we are using the concept of nested macros, there is a multi-level expansion. So if you have any problems with any part of this lecture, please go through it again, try to pause it, recap and go through again. I'm sure you will understand. Fine. Take care.